Welcome to my channel. I want to thank each and every one of you that has come to my channel and subscribed, or liked my videos, or commented on them, or shared them. I really appreciate every single one of you that has come. And I'm very thankful that I have this many people that want to hear what I have to say. I want to talk today about Colorado football stats. For those of you who are following the Colorado team and wondering what's going on, I think possibly my analysis might help you understand the issues. I've been using this spreadsheet for a while, and now what I've done is I've broken it into three separate sheets. One for rushing, one for passing, and one for the games. This is the rushing sheet, and if you look at the rushing sheet, I have down here at the bottom two lines, totals without passing and totals with passing. What that means is when they record the stats for games, they include all of the quarterback's rushes, including the rushes where he loses yardage. So you can see that Sanders has 86 rushes and Rusty Staub has 1. And Sanders has lost 43 yards and Staub has lost 12 yards. But if I want to understand, or you want to understand what's going on with the running backs, you have to remove those numbers from the stats in order to figure that out. So that's what I've done. Totals without pass, totals with pass. Totals with pass is what you're going to find on any stat website like ESPN. Totals without pass, you're only going to find here on my spreadsheet. And as you can see, the running backs have run for an average of 4.1 yards per carry. This is through the 8 games of the season that they played. 4.1 yards per carry. That is an excellent running average. That's a running average that will get you first downs frequently. But you have to look at the games to understand what's going on with the rushing. If you look at the games, what you can see is that they have a total of 165 carries. Now again, I've removed the quarterback's carries from this so that you can see what the running backs are doing. So you have a total of 165 carries, 435 pass attempts. Excuse me. The 435 pass attempts are pass attempts including the rushing that the quarterbacks are doing and the sacks that they've endured, which is quite a few. So the total rushing yards is 87. Total passing yards is 2640. Total yards per game is 3327. And they're averaging passing the ball 72.5% of the time. 72.5% of the time. Now, look at these two numbers down here. This is Kent State in 2022. This is Jackson State in 2022. Jackson State in 2022 passed the ball 56.76% of the time. Again, I've removed the quarterback stats from the running stats. And Kent State passed the ball 53.88% of the time. So both Kent State and Jackson State had balanced offenses. Their offenses were rushing almost as much as they were passing. And so they were able to move the ball. But if you look at the game against UCLA, Colorado passed 83.58% of the time in that game. Well, no wonder Shedeur Sanders is getting sacked. Because UCLA knew, they understood that Colorado was not going to run the ball. And the few times that they did run the ball, all they had to do was stop it with the linebackers. They didn't have to worry about whether the defensive line was able to stop the run because they weren't really running. So the number that's going to have to change if Colorado wants to have any chance at all of winning these upcoming games, is this percentage here. They need to run the ball more. They're averaging 20.63 runs per game. They need to average 30. If you look at TCU, they ran the ball 29 times, and they were very successful against TCU. Against Nebraska, they ran it 21 times. Colorado State, where they struggled, they ran it 16. Oregon, where they got blown out, they ran it 15. USC, where they almost won the game, they ran 31 times. Arizona State, they won but barely. They ran 19 times. Stanford, they ran 23 times. And UCLA, they ran only 11 times. So it's clear and obvious to me that if they want to win games, they need to get their run stats, their run attempts, their carries up around the 29 to 30 range, because that's where they're finding success against good teams. Against both TCU and USC, they ran 29 and 31 times in those games, and they almost won the USC game, and they beat TCU. So we can see the formula for winning. It's not hard to figure out. They just need to run the ball more. Now, I also managed to find some target stats on the passing game. And I wanted to point these out because I've heard some talk about, I've seen some talk on YouTube about Caleb Mathis. Why is he in the game? Caleb Mathis has 4 receptions for 15 yards, so he's averaging 4 yards of reception, okay, or 3.75. Okay? But look at this. He was targeted 4 times. He had 4 receptions. In other words, every time the ball was thrown to him, he caught it. That's why he's playing. Look at this guy. This is Hankerson. Hankerson is catching the ball 91.67% of the time. Okay? So when you have guys that are you can depend on to catch the ball when it's thrown to them, you're going to throw the ball to them. That's the reason why Caleb Mathis is playing, because he catches the balls that are thrown to him. Now, I realize these are small samples, and their numbers will change when the samples get bigger. For example, if you look at Xavier Weaver, who has the most receptions of anyone on the team, and also has scored the most touchdowns because he had 2 running touchdowns as well as those 4 receiving touchdowns. He's at 69.62%. And of course, you can't blame the receiver for every single one. For example, I can remember the play where Sanders overthrew Travis Hunter. There was no way Hunter was going to catch that ball because it was nowhere near him. And the same thing is true of Xavier Weaver. There's been balls that for him were uncatchable. But the point I'm trying to make is these stats, these 100% stats, will surely go down as they play more. But the reason why Caleb Mathis is in the game is because he's catching the ball. And Deion said in his most recent press conference that the reason why Caleb was in the game is because he catches the ball in practice too. So he's showing that he can compete and that he can play. Now, whether he can stretch the field or not is another question. Whether or not he can maintain this over a number of games is another question. But let me show you one that everybody wants to see. Matter of fact, I saw people saying, why didn't they put Omarion Miller in the game instead of Caleb Mathis? Well, here's why. Omarion Miller has 9 catches for 212 yards. How many targets does he have? 16. He's barely catching the ball half of the time. He had one fantastic game where he got 195 yards on 8 receptions. He's had 1 reception since then on the second 8 targets. So he's 1 for 8 on his second 8 targets. Well, if he's not going to catch the ball, why would you play him? Why would you put him on the field? You wouldn't. You see, you cannot judge players based on one game. You have to judge them on their performance throughout the season and how they do as they play the games. Every player can have a fantastic game where they just really go ballistic and they score a lot of points and they catch a lot of passes and they look really, really good, but then they fade into obscurity later. It's the players that you can depend on, like Xavier Weaver, who's caught 79 catches, had 79 targets and 55 receptions. Those are the ones you can count on, because he will be there week after week after week. Same thing for Jimmy Horn, same thing for Travis Hunter. But some of these other guys, they're not proving that they can handle the ball successfully. And they're not proving it in practice either. And so they're not going to play in the games. It's just that simple. So again, the thing you need to understand is that they're not going to win games, the next 3 games that they have to play, or 4 games, I guess it is. They're not going to win against Oregon State. They're not going to win against Washington State. They're not going to win against Arizona unless they run the ball more. They've got to run the ball more. And I don't know why they're not running the ball more, because they ran it at Kent State, they ran it at JSU, and both teams were successful. So it's a real mystery to me, but I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's what Coach Prime is asking for, because he's in charge. If he knew, and I'm sure he must know, that they're not running the ball much, then if he wants to run the ball more, they're going to run the ball more. It's that simple. He's going to tell Sean Lewis, you need to run the ball more. So he's clearly not telling Sean that, and Sean apparently has been told not to run the ball unless he has to. And so here we are with what Deion himself admitted was a one-dimensional offense, and you can't win games playing one-dimensional football. So that's going to have to change. If it doesn't change, then I stick by my prediction. They're not going to win another game. If they start running the ball more, then that could change things. They might be able to win a game or possibly 2 and actually make it to a bowl game. But if they don't start running the ball, they're not going to do that. So that's one of the things I'm going to be keeping my eye out for this weekend when they play Oregon State is, did they even bother to try and run the ball? Or were they still sticking to this one-dimensional offense where they try to pass the ball constantly and put Shedeur in awful situations where he's just running for his life most of the time? So that's my analysis. You can do with it what you will. Comment on it if you want to. If you disagree with me, let me know and tell me why you disagree. And if you have Deion's ear, tell him, run the ball. You need to run the ball. You need to run the ball more. If you want to win these games, you're going to have to run the ball. It's that simple. As always, I pray that you will be prosperous and that you'll be in good health, that you'll live a long life, and that God will keep you safe. I pray that He'll do the same for every person that you love. And I pray that you'll be anxious for nothing, but in all things through prayer and supplication, you'll let your requests be made known to God, and the peace that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam Era Vet out.